The Invisible Empire. How America's Allies Actually Subsidize U.S. Power by Stephanie Larocque. You've probably heard the story 1,000 times. America shoulders the world's burdens. American taxpayers fund global security while allies freeload. The United States props up the international system while everyone else takes advantage. It's a compelling narrative. It's also backwards. The real story is far more interesting, and it reveals something most people never see: a global economic architecture that quietly, systematically transfers wealth and strategic advantage to the United States, not through conspiracy or malice, but through the mundane mechanics of how money moves, how trade works, and how alliances actually function. This isn't about heroes and villains. It's about plumbing, the financial and strategic infrastructure connecting the world happens to be designed in ways that benefit one country above all others. And in 2026, as the Arctic melts and old arrangements crack under new pressures, that invisible architecture is finally becoming visible. The dollar's exorbitant privilege, French Finance Minister Valéry Giscard d'Estaing coined the phrase in the 1960s. Exorbitant privilege. He wasn't being dramatic. He was describing observable facts about how the US dollar works in the global system. Here's what most people miss. When the United States borrows money, it borrows in its own currency. That sounds unremarkable until you realize what it means. Every other country has to earn foreign currency before spending it abroad. The United States just prints more dollars. There's no currency risk, no scramble for reserves, no constraint that other nations face. Global demand for dollars keeps this going. Oil is sold in dollars. International debts are paid in dollars. Central banks hold dollars as reserves. This creates persistent demand that props up the currency even as America runs massive trade deficits that would sink any other nation's money. The mechanics are straightforward. America imports more than it exports, sending dollars abroad. Those dollars come back as purchases of U.S. Treasury bonds and other assets. This recycling keeps American borrowing costs artificially low, an estimated 50 to 100 basis points below where they would otherwise be. Across trillions in debt, that gap translates into hundreds of billions in savings. There's another piece most people never consider. When the U.S. expands its money supply, some of the resulting inflation is exported. Foreign holders of dollar assets watch their purchasing power erode. It isn't intentional economic warfare. It's structural. The costs of American monetary policy are distributed globally while the benefits remain domestic. This isn't a partnership. It's a subsidy flowing quietly from the world to Washington. How Canada and Europe actually support American power, the subsidy becomes concrete when you look at America's closest allies. Start with currencies and finance. Canada and Europe maintain their own currencies, but they are deeply embedded in dollar-based systems. They hold substantial dollar reserves. They transact in dollars even when trading with non-American partners. Their banks clear transactions through dollar-denominated payment rails. When crises hit, capital flees from Canadian and European assets into U.S. treasuries. This flight to safety cushions American policy failures. Other countries absorb volatility, while the United States enjoys stability it didn't earn through superior governance, only through structural advantage. Canada provides a particularly clean example. Its economy is highly integrated with the U.S., yet it bears currency risk that America never does. When commodity prices swing or global risk rises, the Canadian dollar moves sharply. The U.S. dollar strengthens. Canadian households and firms feel the shock. American ones often don't. Europe faces the same dynamic on a larger scale. The euro may rival the dollar in size, but not in function. During stress, global investors don't rush into European bonds. They rush into U.S. treasuries. The result is higher borrowing costs for European governments precisely when they can least afford them, and lower costs for Washington precisely when its deficits explode. This pattern is so normalized that it's rarely questioned. It's treated as the natural order of things, rather than a massive ongoing transfer of risk away from the United States and onto its allies. Security alliances, as economic infrastructure military alliances, are usually discussed in terms of tanks, troops, and spending targets. That framing misses the deeper function they serve. U.S. security guarantees reduce risk for American trade and investment far more than for anyone else's. Shipping lanes policed by the U.S. Navy lower insurance costs for global commerce, but the ultimate beneficiary is the issuer of the world's reserve currency. Stability reinforces dollar dominance, which in turn finances the military that enforces stability. It's a self-reinforcing loop. Allies contribute real resources. They host bases. They align foreign policy. They absorb political blowback. What they don't get is monetary sovereignty at the top of the system. The costs are shared. The upside is asymmetric. This is why debates over burden sharing miss the point. The largest contribution America's allies make isn't measured in defense budgets. It's measured in foregone autonomy, absorbed volatility, and structural dependence on a system that ultimately anchors in Washington. Trade deficits as strategic assets in most countries, persistent trade deficits are a warning sign. They signal lost competitiveness, capital flight, and future austerity. In the United States, they function as a feature. Because dollars are the world's reserve asset, America can run deficits indefinitely without triggering a balance of payments crisis. Imports become a way of exporting currency and importing real goods. Other countries do the production. America does the consumption. Those exported dollars don't disappear. They come back as investment in American assets, real estate, equities, and government debt. The rest of the world effectively finances U.S. consumption while assuming the risk of holding the liabilities. Canada and Europe participate in this system even when it works against their own industrial bases. Deindustrialization, supply chain dependence, and hollowed-out manufacturing are not just domestic policy failures. They're side effects of a global order that rewards the issuer of the reserve currency and disciplines everyone else. The Arctic and the cracks in the system for decades. This architecture was stable enough that most participants accepted it as inevitable. That era is ending. Climate change is redrawing trade routes. The Arctic is opening. Resource competition is intensifying. Energy transitions are disrupting petrodollar dynamics. Sanctions regimes are pushing countries to experiment with non-dollar settlement. None of this means the dollar collapses tomorrow. What it means is that the hidden subsidies are becoming visible, and visibility changes politics. Canada, sitting on Arctic access and critical minerals, is no longer just a junior partner in continental defense. Europe, facing energy insecurity and strategic fragmentation, is questioning how much volatility it can continue to absorb on America's behalf. The system doesn't fall apart because it's evil. It frays because it was built for a different world. The myth that refuses to die, the idea that America selflessly carries the world, is emotionally satisfying. It flatters national identity. It simplifies complex systems into moral stories, but it obscures reality. America's power is real. So is the support it receives. The global order is not a one-way act of generosity. It is an exchange structured in ways that quietly favor one participant more than all the others. Understanding that doesn't make the United States a villain. It makes it what it has always been, the primary beneficiary of a system that others help sustain, often at their own expense. The invisible empire isn't enforced by force alone. It's enforced by habits, assumptions, and financial mechanics so familiar that they disappear from view, until they don't.
In the quiet of the storm, when the night feels far too long, I've stumbled through the shadows, fallen more than I can count. But every crack inside my armor let the stronger light pour out. They said I couldn't make it, tried to write me off again, but I've learned the fire inside me burns brighter in the end. I will rise every closed door.